Hey everybody, my name is Jason, also known as Pirate JC out there in the Babylon world. And today I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about something super near and dear to my heart. We're going to combine Babylon with electronics. Specifically, we're going to be creating a circuit that allows a Babylon game to connect wirelessly to an IoT chip. And once we accomplish a certain goal in that game, we're going to light up an LED wirelessly. Could not be more excited about this, tapping into some roots for me for a love of Disney Imagineering and all the Disney parks around the world. I love the idea of combining technology and art, and this is sort of the roots of some of that stuff, so I hope you find as much enjoyment in this as I do. To start out, let's go over a couple of things you're going to need to know before diving into this video. First and foremost, I'm going to assume that you have some basic knowledge of Babylon.js, that you know what it is, that you are familiar with the idea of creating 3D interactive websites. We'll go through a process of hosting a website in this video, but I'll assume you have some basic knowledge of what Babylon.js is. Also, I'm going to assume that you have some basic knowledge of electronic microcontrollers themselves, how you can upload code to basically control the flow of electrons. We're going to be talking about the specific hardware that we're using in the chip. It's called the ESP8266. Don't worry, that's a mouthful. We can get to that later. We're going to be using the Arduino IDE. If you're not familiar with this, we'll explain that in a minute. And then finally, we're going to go through the process of creating an account with Infinity Free to freely host our website, the Babylon game, and host it out in the world. Infinity Free is not sponsoring this video in any way, but just a big fan of how easy it is to get a website set up. So let's actually start in by going over the electronic microcontroller we're using for this video. It's called the ESP8266. I know that's a mouthful. It's actually this component right here. This actually specifically is the ESP8266. It is an insanely popular IoT chip because it's really low power and really low cost. It's about $3 here in the US. That you can buy one for. You can get them all over the world. They're super easy to program for, super easy to control things, all kinds of different components. Just really, really popular IoT chip. Specifically, though, I'm using a variant of this chip called the Node MCU. Now, the Node MCU is actually the rest of this board. If this is the main component here that we're programming for, the rest of this is the Node MCU variant. It just allows us to have a USB serial connection, some reset pins, and then easier access to our pin layout so that we can prototype a little bit easier. Since we're here and we're actually already looking at the board itself, let's go ahead and just program up the hardware component of this video. Super, super simple. It's 3 components and that's it. What we're going to basically do is we're going to take an LED. Now, on an LED, if you don't have any microcontroller experience whatsoever, you'll need to know that some LEDs operate at different voltages. This particular one works perfectly. No resistors necessary right off the voltage of this board. But you'll notice that there's a long pin and a short pin here. Now, the long pin is supposed to connect to the positive lead. So we're going to plug that right into our breadboard, just like that. We're going to connect our positive lead to that longer end, and then we're going to connect the other side to pin D2 here on the board. I guess let's make it so you can see it. It's a little hard to see here, but it's the third one here from the right-hand side. So we're going to connect that into pin D2. There is writing and labels on all of these. It's just can't quite see them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the negative lead, connect it to the shorter side of the LED, because these are all connected to this breadboard, and then connect that into the ground pin. Sorry, let's see that a little easier there. The ground pin of the Node MCU. That's it. That's the entire hardware setup. This LED will hopefully turn on when we do this all right at the end of this. But now what we're going to do is we're going to spend the rest of the time diving into the software components of what we're going to need for this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our machine here, and we're going to bring up a web browser. And actually, we're going to start here with this playground. Now, the link to this playground, this Babylon playground, is located in the description of this video, so please feel free to check that out. Click on it. It has all of the code that we're going to need, all of the resources and everything that we're going to need for this project. It's all in here. So bear with me and we'll follow through all this, and everything you need is right here. So check that out. Before we do anything, we need to write some software control to the microcontroller, to the ESP8266. So we're going to make sure that we have the Arduino IDE installed. Just go to arduino.cc It's right here, download the Arduino IDE. I'm on the Windows machine, so I'm going to pick the Windows installer. I click that. I actually already have that installed. Once you have it up, they call them sketches. Arduino calls them sketches. It's the same as scripts, and that's the code that we're going to write to upload to the CPU on the logic board on the ESP8266. That's going to control all of the different pins and where electrons flow. So there's a couple of steps we need to go through to actually make sure that the software here knows to talk specifically to this hardware. It's not hard, but there's 3 steps that we have to go through. The first one is we actually have to tell this software package we want to use this board. And we're going to do that by clicking on File, going to Preferences, and you'll notice here towards the bottom there's this Additional Boards Manager URLs. And we are specifically looking for one that's going to tell our IDE we need more options than what comes out of the box. Super, super easy. That's actually located again in the playground here towards the bottom in some of this commented out code. You'll see the location for the Arduino ESP8266 and the Arduino IDE. We're going to copy and paste this line right here, right into the Additional Boards Manager URL. And I've already done that here. You're going to click OK. And then we'll go to Tools, and under Board, you'll see Boards Manager. We're going to click on Boards Manager. Under this is all kinds of other microcontrollers that you can basically install that the Arduino IDE will then be able to understand and communicate with. And so specifically, we're going to be looking for the ESP8266, excuse me. Here it is. This is a library. You notice I already have it installed. For you, you'll see a little install button right here. Just click right there, click install. Once you're done, hit close. Almost done. One final step that we need to go through, which is we need to tell this computer, we need to give it the hardware driver to be actually be able to communicate via the serial USB bus on the board itself. Again, super easy. Back to our playground. Everything we need is right here. This is the location of the driver. I have it up right here. It is the CP210X driver, and you just grab the Windows Universal, download that, install that, and you are off to the races. Now, one thing to be cautious of as you're going through writing code out is I've had a little bit of trouble with the upload speed of different boards. You just might want to mess with this a little bit. I think default it's set to 9600. You may experience timeout when you're writing. Don't panic. Don't worry about it. Just try a different one. On this particular machine with this setup, this one works really well with for me. So just be aware that that's something that may go wrong that you may need to troubleshoot. So what we're going to do, since we're already here in the Arduino land, we'll go ahead and just kill off everything that's here, highlight it, delete it, go back to our playground, and we're going to look for, here's the code for the Arduino for the ESP8266 for this project. We're going to grab everything from this first include line, and we're going to go all the way down through that curly brace. We'll copy that. We'll go over to the Arduino IDE, and that's it. That's everything that you need to write to the chip that's then going to control the incoming request from the Babylon game, and it's going to light up the LED for us. Let's walk through this code very, very briefly so I can explain what's happening. Up here, we're basically going to be using the Wi-Fi capabilities of the chip, and we're going to turn it into a web server. So we're going to include the libraries necessary for that. Also, the chip itself, the ESP8266, is actually going to function as a wireless access point. We're going to connect directly to it rather than connecting to it through another server or service. And so in order to do that, we actually need to set up a Wi-Fi name and password, give it a local IP, gateway, subnet, some of this stuff that just you'll have to walk through it very, very quickly. You can just use this default stuff here. Specifically want to tell this server to be listening to port 80. That's where the HTTP requests come in. And then this is the setup loop. Now this runs once as soon as the code first starts. This is where you do all of your setup for your scene, your sketch, excuse me. Basically running through this really quickly, this is going to set up pin D2. That's where we're plugged into for the LED. It's going to set it up as an output. We're going to write electrons out of it. And then we're going to say, okay, we want to make sure this is an access point, give it the Wi-Fi name and password from earlier. We'll program in a little delay just because with microcontroller land, sometimes it takes a minute to process. They're not crazy high powered. And so you're going to want to make sure that you give it a little bit of time occasionally. You can mess with that if you need to, depending on which board you're using. Finally, we're going to turn the server on, and we're going to say, hey, anytime we see this as a part of the URL, this goal, we're actually going to run a function called handle goal. And then finally, we're going to turn on the server, basically begin the server. Then you've got your loop. This happens every second, the loop. We're going to run through this, and basically it's saying, hey, handle any clients that connect to me. Cool. Well, the only thing that's happening is basically we're looking for this goal in any HTTP request that hits this particular server. When that happens, it's super simple. We handle goal, which is simply writing out a signal of high or on to pin D2, which then turns on our LED. Really, really straightforward. That's pretty much all the code that you need to turn this really cool chip into a wireless access point. So that's it. Now it's a web server. To deploy this code to your chip itself, you're going to hit this little upload button, and you'll see some output here in this console down below. I've already done that for us. For the sake of time, I'll skip over that. Shouldn't have any trouble. This is all the code you need. And again, if you've gone through the steps and installed the driver, that should all work just fine. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're done with the hardware component and the software for the hardware component. Now we're going to go create the Babylon scene. We're going to do the Babylon side of this project. So in order to do that, I'm going to close everything here, and I'm going to start by creating a new text document. We'll keep this super simple. We'll just create a text document. We're going to call it index.html. We'll open it up. It's blank, as it should be. Now, when you're first getting started with Babylon, if you're not already familiar with this, you're going to go to Babylon.js.com. Here's everything you need to know about Babylon. Again, for this video, I'm going to assume you already know a little bit. We're going to go to our documentation, found under Learn, Documentation, and we're going to be looking for Babylon 101. That's our awesome course. If you're just getting started, check that out. It's a great way to get familiar with Babylon. We'll skip over the agenda here for the course, and we'll go right to First Steps. So under First Steps, you'll notice that here is the code that we need to run our own HTML site. Super easy. All we're going to do is take what's in here. We'll copy and paste this right inside of our text document. Hit save, and we're ready to upload this HTML file, post it on the web, and host our own website. To do that, pretty straightforward. We're going to go to infinityfree.com. I mean, pick the website hosting of your choice. I like this one just because it's free. It's easy. You don't need a credit card. It plays really, really well for us. So what we're going to do is once you log in, you'll be presented with your client area. You're going to create a new account. Super easy. Just right here on the left, hit new account. I won't walk you through all this. You're going to pick a free subdomain. A subdomain is, your name of your website, .itpeasy.com in this case. You can choose other ones. I'm just choosing this one here. I actually already have created an account. I have babylonelectronics.itpeasy.com. It takes a minute to set up. You hit refresh on your page, and eventually you'll get set up. It takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to hit the control panel. And from the control panel, I'm going to go right to the online file manager. From the file manager, I'll be presented with these are where the files go for your website. Specifically, it says, hey, not here, but rather, hey, look right in here. This is where we're going to drop our files. So all I'm going to do is go down to the bottom left-hand corner where we can upload. I'll hit upload file. I'll pick the index.html, let it upload. In this case, actually, it looks like it's .html.txt. That's probably my fault. We'll rename that just to HTML. Hit OK. And now I'm going to bring up a brand new tab, and I'm going to type in babylonelectronics.itpeasy.com. That's my subdomain URL on Infinity Free. I'll hit enter, and here we go. This is not at all what it should be. That's pretty funny. I wonder. There we go. Got a little ahead of ourselves there. So this is exactly what it's supposed to look like. This is the default scene. We've got a light, we've got a sphere, we've got a camera. That's the code that we got right from the Babylon 101 documentation. Obviously, sneak peek at what's to come. So now what we need to do, we've seen how easy it is to host it. This is open out there on the internet. Everybody can see it. It's a hosted website. Now what we need to do is we need to go grab our playground code for our target and the code that sends an HTTP request to the ESP8266 hardware. So we're going to scroll up to the top. You can probably guess what we're going to do here. Actually, let me take a look at our text document. In the text document, we're actually looking for this part right here. And we're going to replace that. That is essentially the Babylon scene, create scene. This is everything that creates the Babylon experience itself. Again, see here we actually have 2 lights, the sphere, and a camera. We're going to replace this with this playground code. So we're going to grab everything, go to scroll to the top of the playground here, grab everything from create scene all the way down until we get to the bottom of this. There's a bit. Don't worry if you're overwhelmed, if you find this overwhelming. Not a problem. We can run through that quickly in a minute. But I'm going to copy and paste this over this create scene right here. So really simply, let me run through this code crazy quickly with you for the sake of time. What this is doing is setting up a Babylon scene, putting a camera in there, a light, setting up that beautiful cloud background that we have. I'm going to be loading in marbles from the Babylon asset repository. And part of that, it comes with several textures. So I'm going to create an array, and I'm going to pass the different textures that come with this asset into an array. Basically, every marble that we fire will give it a random material that comes with it. So then what we're going to do is we're going to import the target. We'll rotate the target and then make sure that it's all set up appropriately. We have a bullseye. Now, that's what you're doing here. Yeah, the bullseye is an invisible cylinder. That's what's actually the trigger in the middle of the red section of the target. We'll set that to 0, position it everything that we want. This code, not too crazy here. What's happening is it's listening for a keyboard event. In this case, I'm just using the space bar. You can use whatever key you want. And then what it's going to do is it's going to clone a marble. It's going to give it some physics parameters, give it a force so it fires out. And then it's going to basically send it a trigger action. Now, a trigger action is basically saying if I ever interact with the bullseye, then what's going to happen is I'm going to send a Wi-Fi request specifically to this address, which at this point is the ESP8266 once we connect to it. And so it's that simple. Well, then once the ESP8266 sees that goal, again, it knows to run that function and turn on that LED. And then finally, if a marble hits an invisible box at the bottom, it kills it off just to save on some perf. And that's basically it. That's our whole scene. Pretty straightforward. I know there's a lot of code, but actually once you run through the logic, it's pretty easy. So what we're going to do is we've saved this in here. We're going to save this file, go back to our file manager. We'll delete this version and upload a new one. There we go. Again, I think I'm going to have to kill off the TXT. Apologies about that. And then we'll hit refresh. Uh-oh. Encountered a little bit of a problem here. Now, don't worry, this is to be expected. The reason this isn't working is because in our playground, you'll see that we actually have a marble that's firing that has physics attached to it. Now, you got to do one more thing. At the very bottom of this playground, you'll see that we have a script for the actual physics engine, and we need to add that to our text document. So we'll scroll up to the top where we're including all of the scripts, basically telling the HTML, hey, here's where Babylon is, here's where the Babylon loaders are, so forth and so on. We're just going to add that right in there. And now we can tell it this is where the physics engine that we're using in this scene is located. So we'll hit save. We'll go through this process one more time. We'll delete this, confirm, upload the new one. Of course, we have to rename it. And then finally, what we'll end up with is what we teased earlier, which is there's the Babylon scene. Now, this is the game. Notice we're firing marbles. It's great. Everything looks fantastic. They disappear once they hit an invisible box. Love it. Everything's fantastic. One final step before I can show you how we actually turn on this LED, which is we actually need to go to connect to the Node MCU. Now here it is. Here's my Babylon Node MCU. I'm going to hit connect. That should go pretty quickly to connect. Yep, we're already connected to it, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to get my scene ready here. I'll see if we can make a bullseye, and then let's take a look at this because we should be able to see that LED come on as soon as I hit a bullseye. Not quite yet. Let's go up a little bit. How about right there? Boom, that's it, the LED. We did it. That is the coolest thing in the world. Oh man, I love it. Absolutely love it. I hope you're as excited about this as I am. The possibilities of connecting the physical world with Babylon interactive 3D scenes hosted on the web. Man, the possibilities are endless. I absolutely am geeking out about this project, and I cannot wait to see what each of you creates with it. I honestly cannot wait. So please try it, mess with it, come up with your own creations. In the US, Halloween is just around the corner, so maybe use it to scare some trick-or-treaters. I just can't wait to see what you guys make. Please comment below. Let me know what you think about this. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. We're going to have a lot more content coming soon. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for checking it out, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.